Hello, this is Jacob here today with Small Business Chat, another episode of Team Building, how to build a perfect team with your current employees or a brand new team. Just going off of last week's podcast, joins me today is Matt. How's it going today, Matt?
Fine. Wow, we're setting the bar high today. Perfect team.
The
Woo.
perfect team,
Uh,
the A team, the dream team, the Olympic team that you're going to take and win a gold medal with. That's what team we're going to build today. What do you think?
oh yeah, Michael Jordan all the way.
Okay, okay now Matt, settle this argument. Is LeBron better or is Michael better?
I'm trying
Or
to
Larry
remember how many
Bird?
times. Yeah, well, yeah, Bert. No, it's yeah. I always think the best is always a very difficult analysis. I think Mount Rushmore is the easier one. But at least for my money, if all things considered, MJ is undefeated in championship games. Did not, in respect to all the men that played with him over the years, did not, however, have the cast that LeBron James has had over the years with him and such. So I just think MJ is still the most dominant. And MJ, I don't remember him missing game-winning shots when it mattered. And you never saw him whining to a ref because he didn't have to. He just won the game. Now, that doesn't take anything away from LeBron, by the way. LeBron is still freaking amazing and one of the greatest of all time. And so, but mad respect, such. But anyways, what do you think?
I think I think obviously a lot of people lean towards more LeBron because he's obviously here and now. And it's nice to see and root for a guy that's obviously you can see playing now. I know I've looked up the scores and the stats and everything before, and it's more on LeBron's side that he's got the better stats, but I'm looking at more of if we're only playing by stats, maybe LeBron, but overall team, since we're talking about building a perfect team here, I guess this fits perfectly. But I feel like he has been able to lead his team into victory multiple times. I know LeBron has lots of rings as well, but I think Michael is just a better team captain more than LeBron ever was, and I think he's just like you said, he never missed game winning shots. He's just always been a perfect player in my opinion. So I think not LeBron, sorry,
Well,
Michael Jordan has it. Yeah.
yeah, Michael Jordan. And the other thing is, one of the things that I always found with Jordan was, and I think this is not, I think that's been one of the knocks on, Mr. James, which is, I think that when you're a great team and team leader, you elevate the game of those around you. And I think one of the knocks on LeBron has been, and I'll say this until the last couple of years, but I think one of the knocks on LeBron was that it was always about LeBron, 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 LeBron. And that said, I will credit, Mr. James with, in the last couple of years at the Lakers, I absolutely think he has been that guy. I do not think he has had the support at the Lakers because I watched the playoffs. I love the Lakers. And I really thought that when they assembled him and, AD together, they were going to make just a couple really strong runs. And in fairness, I thought LeBron and AD did everything they could this year to win the series, and they just had no support from any of the other guys on the actual team. And such, they just would have had one other guy hitting shots. They probably would have won against the Denver Nuggets in the first round. But he has sort of become that guy later in his career because I think he's had to. But props out to LeBron for being third team, all NBA. I believe that's what he was. So he's still all NBA in the twilight of his career. So again, a fantastic talent. And the other thing is, by the way, just when we talk about these sort of things, we assemble great teams and all that, just remember when we compare LeBron and Michael, it's like comparing, gold and platinum. So there's not a bad choice here. It's just who's slightly better. And I think that, you know, I think that's one of the challenges of a team. And let me take this to Phil Jackson, and then we'll just be able to roll this nicely back into our team discussion here today, which is, you know, I think one of the challenges when you assemble a really great team is making all those team members work together, especially if they're high producers or high performers. And that's one of the miracles they always said of Phil Jackson's game, and probably Pat, Riley before him, is that he could take the players and their egos and such and make them all work together. I know that's something that I have been challenged with in the companies that I have run over the years. When you have that amazing salesperson, they always have to be in number one at the end of the month, or they pout sometimes, or take it out on other salespeople. And it's a very interesting dynamic that you have to be able to do to make these great team players play together sometimes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's always good to pay a lot of attention to those top players because those are the people that win for you. There's the ones that score the most points, earn the most dollars in our case. And so those people definitely need to be paid attention to closely. And also, they're the ones that always win all the challenges and all the competitions that we always have. So yeah, most definitely. I have some cool things to talk about today. I know we talked about more of so last time, how to develop the people that you currently have into better folks, better employees for your mission or your vision for the company and the company's future. But what I want to also touch upon today to add on to it is now that you've already had employees, maybe you don't have enough employees, maybe you need to get some more employees through the door. We've had tons of times that we've gone through that, Matt. I've also done plenty of interviews with people, trying to get them into the business. Now, what can you offer for advice or also some sort of guidance of how to recruit people? I know there's job boards that you can get. You can list your job opening there. Social media is another great avenue. Referrals, man. I mean, a lot of referrals. I mean, most of our company is mostly referrals. I mean, I was, and Ginger was, and a couple other people that we have in our business were. Can you touch upon maybe the best way to get people into this to your business?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I think it's a great conversation to have. So first, how do you get people to actually apply? And I think this goes back to our discussion last week. You need to have what people are looking for. A great culture, opportunity for advancement, money, whatever it is. But you need to be able to match that out and give them, the opportunity to have hopefully a meaningful career, with your company. That goes to actually the job ad or otherwise. So several different ways to actually get them coming in the door. Number one, Indeed.com. That's at least who we use. I know there used to be a site called Monster.com. I don't even know if they're out there anymore. I like Indeed.com because it's just like Google or Microsoft Ads. It is literally pay per click. So you pay basically for applicants. Now, the challenge with those applicants is then that they may apply, I'm assuming, to 30 or 40 jobs without even knowing who they're applying to. And so I think this is something that once you actually then, there's then the different levels when you get those resumes in. I personally have always felt that the highest form of compliment is another way to basically we get people in the door is if you treat your people well enough and they enjoy what they're doing. And remember, folks, we have to put just a little definition here, especially for the younger generation, enjoying what you do. It's work. Okay. And the reason why you work is for your paycheck. Again, I'm 53 years old. I think a lot of times people want to have a meaningful place to work. That's fine and things. But the primary reason is you work is for your paycheck. But if it's still work at the end of the day. So you have to come in, you got to do what you have to do. Some of it may be not exactly what you want to do, but that's why we call it work. If it was just fun all day long, they would call it, holy crap, I can't believe how fun this is. They call it work for a reason. But you want to look through when you're looking through those resumes, and I look for the automatic deal killers to sort of when you're sort of screening through those resumes. And would, of course, you like to know what those deal killers are?
Yeah, what are they? What type of red flags pop into your head, Matt?
Well, the first thing that I always look for is number one, do they have any relevant experience to what I'm looking for? Now, believe it or not, this is not always 100% a deal killer. But if we're looking, for instance, for a salesperson, I need you to have something that's either relevant, sales, or perhaps a personality job that is relevant to sales. I love bartenders. I love servers to then come on in and go through our sales training because these are people that are used to interacting with customers. But if you come in and you tell me that you've just been a mailroom clerk or some job that I can't even tell you, whatever, you have no sales experience and you haven't been customer facing forward, it's going to be hard to get past my level of screening. The second, and probably one of the bigger ones that I have done, that is a real deal killer for me, is when you craft a resume, it is not impressive to have 16 employers on your resume in 16 years. Taking that back to the younger generation, if I look at you and your longest stint of employment with anyone is like 1, maybe 2 years, and I understand we're in a new normal now, whereas people aren't staying in jobs as long as they used to. And I think that goes to the general culture that we're dealing with, the cultural shift we're dealing with. I don't want to hire you because you're a job hopper. And if I look and I see that you're a job hopper when I'm looking to your resume, I'm not even going to give you an interview. So in other words, if you've only been out of college since, 2020 and you've already had 4 or 5 jobs and it's listed in your, 9 months here, a year there, et cetera, et cetera, my automatic where I'm going to go to is you're a job hopper. So you're going to be here for 9 months to a year. It's not worth my time to invest training you. Okay. Unless there's something that jumps off the resume as to why you would have been a job hopper. For instance, the company closed, they went bankrupt, something. And so rarely will a job hopper ever make it to an interview with me. One of the things that then when you get in and is more the interview stage is, have you ever left a job? And this is my final sort of knockout one. Excuse me, 2 more knockouts. Number one, have you ever, excuse me, number two, it's really, so it's one is job hopper. Number two is, have you ever left a job without having another job? Now, with the exception of if they had childcare duties, parental duties, if they have an ailing parent or something like that, if someone just says, yeah, I just got up, I couldn't stand my boss anymore, told him to kiss my grits, and I walked out the door, I honestly don't want to, hire you because I know that's your mindset. You don't even care. Evidently, you are independently wealthy, whatever the case may be. But if you're just going to willing to walk out on somebody else's job, you're willing to walk out on my job. And so if you have a single bad day, to me, personality wise, that's indicative. You may just go, see ya, I'm out. And you can't build a company around people like that. Third, um, I'm sorry. I have to pause. Any comments on you? I'm trying to remember what the third one is, but I think I'm going to remember it here in a second. I just got to go back through my notes here. But these big
But
disqualifying ones.
But yeah, one of my biggest ones, I also think used it on me as well when you first interviewed me, Matt. Remember, I was in the car, you were in your office in your home or something when you gave me my interview. But yeah, I think one of the biggest red flags, especially if you're you have a website presence, which most people do, is if you ask, oh, have you seen our website yet? And if they say no, then that means they are just turning and burning resumes at that point, that they're just trying to like go through so many different job applications until they just hit one, that they're just throwing resumes out the wazoo to every job employer that they can. And just they don't even have to give you the time to even think about your website or anything, and they're not going to be invested at that point. So that's definitely one of the biggest red flags I used to listen to when I would do interviews, is I would look out for that question being answered. Yes, I have looked at your website. I've looked at what kind of services you guys provide, trademarks, such and such. Or if they say no, I haven't had the chance yet, then they don't really care about your business. I had to
Thank you
figure
so
it out.
much. I'm so proud because that actually is number three. So
Oh, it was. Let's
that was
go.
actually number three, and I remembered right when you started. But when you started, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's number three. Thank you. So it's again, so just for anyone who happens to listen to this thing. So the first one is job hoppers. The second one is left a job without having another job, not for a good reason. Right. Like, or I'm going back for get, further education. I'm taking care of a child, and again, very cautious because there's a lot of Title VII things. I'm not saying you can really ask, you have to be very cautious about these things. We're not giving you legal advice as to how to get these things out. And then that third one is they have no idea who we are. And again, I cannot tell you how many times I've asked, so what do you think of our website? Like, I think even on our Indeed ads, or no, when we actually invite someone for an interview, it literally explicitly states, please take a look at our website prior to your interview. And so, two things in one. If under this third criteria, Okay. If they didn't look at your website, number one, they have no idea who you are and they don't care. If they don't care about your business coming in for an interview, ace them out. Doesn't matter. But secondly, they can't even follow routine instructions, very simple instructions. Please look at our website. I always love also when people try to fake it. I'm like, yeah, so what do you think of our website? It was good. Like the colors. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, wait, I mean, talk about our services for a minute.
What
Oh,
are
yeah.
the colors?
Yeah, exactly. What are the colors?
Yellow.
Give me the Pantone numbers. But the other one is, then just on an aside of what we have seen in the past, and I will like this more, but I have had one person at least come back and be very honest. I don't think we hired the person. I didn't otherwise like how they interviewed, but I remember one person actually came back and gave me almost like a dissertation with what was wrong with the website. But I respected the heck out of it. And they got an interview because like, okay, I don't like your website because here's why. It's a little bit wonky here and blah, 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 et cetera, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, boy, you really took this assignment to heart. But at the end of the day, we're not looking for people just to blow smoke up us. But it was a little bit like, okay, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, maybe to be a little more positive. Like, where I would improve it is as follows, as opposed to what's wrong. And by the way, remember, perspective, we always say is positive, retrospective is negative. Oh, you know how I would improve it versus, well, what's wrong with your website, and it's just a slightly different way you phrase things. But so getting that interview and or interviewing, these are the things we look for. Now, aside from that, let's assume they get through those three. Then, of course, you're going to interview them on, you know, test their skills, their personality, especially for a sales job. You have to have a good personality because in sales, you're selling yourself and then the product second. But your customer needs to be able to like you. Um, One of the things that I have done, and I read this a long time ago, which you really should have 3 interviews at no minimum than 3 interviews. Your first is just that 15-minute screening phone interview, wherein you are going to ask them those knockout questions and you're going to ask them just more general questions. Hey, bring me through your background, bring me through your resume, even though you're staring at their resume. And you're going to ask them the knockout questions. And then you want to see if their personality suits with what you're hiring. And then if so, we're after COVID right now. Bring them on in for that in-face interview because you want to see how they actually really react. The in the in-face interview, so to speak, or a Zoom interview or whatever it is, if it's remote, that's where I've always used that as the scare interview, which is listen, we're a great place to work and culture and all that sort of stuff, but why are we going to invest in you? I almost flip it on its head. I don't know. Did I do that with you on your second interview? Do you remember? Did I do your second interview?
No, I think yeah, no, Kyle did both my first round and second round, and then you did like the last round interview.
Oh, so that was just a meet and greet then, because that was it. So Kyle would then say, I don't know if he followed my format or not. I get the feeling he did not.
No.
Um,
Mm-mm.
yeah. So the second one is, and again, you got to be a little bit cautious because the days, the generations have changed and all that. But the second interview to me is where you basically try to scare them on, here's what the job actually entails. This is what will I expect. This is what you will do. This is what you will not do, et cetera, et cetera. We have a great place to work. We have a great culture here. But the second interview, you sort of tell them, but I'm going to protect that culture against malaise, laziness, people who don't want to get their job done, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the job. Here's the parameters of that job. Are you going to do that job for me? Yes or no? And, and you almost want to scare them away from working from you at the exact same time. You're trying to tell them this is such an amazing place to work. I am trying to let you know this is what's expected. Let me take this in a different direction. Otherwise, if you're just trying to recruit people, have them Krispy Kreme donuts. This is easy. You just come in, you sit down, you put your feet up, you say whatever you want, you leave at 5 o'clock. It's the greatest job ever, et cetera, et cetera. And that person will come to you. They will work for you. They will never meet the expectations that you have because you haven't set them out for them. And then they'll leave after a year disgruntled. Well, it wasn't the place I thought it was going to be. Well, what did you think it was going to be? Well, I thought I was just going to have Krispy Kreme donuts every morning, put my feet up and not really do anything. No, the second interview is to tell them what life is really like at the job. And ideally, if you have someone who is, in essence, working in the position near you. So we have a sales floor. If they want to look, have them shadow somebody for about an hour while they're there on their second interview. that also is something that's also you can leave for the third interview when you're going to bring them in and give them an offer. But that second interview is effectively to say, listen, this is what the expectations would be. So you can have is going to be, so you can have a meeting of the minds. And then once you have that meeting of the minds and they agree to a third interview at the end of it's going to be the offer. But you want them, especially if I'm sorry, the shadowing, if they can actually shadow someone, so they can actually look into that one last time, say, okay, here's the expectations. Shadow somebody. Do you think you can do this for me? Because this is what I expect from you here and such. Okay, fantastic. Set them down. Where we start people is at X. Your bonus structure will be Y. And after 1 year, here's where we want you. Number 2, 3, and offer them right there on the spot. That's how I have done it in the past. And I think it's really lent to some, good hiring practices. What do you got to add on that?
I think all of those are good, really good points. I've never done a third round interview, I don't think, but I think all of those values are correct. First interview, I was obviously identifying all of the issues or red flags to see if any of those come up at all with your first potential interview. Obviously, if the personality is there, I do agree with you, Matt, that personality is a big key factor into that, because if they don't have the personality, obviously, since you're hiring for a salesperson, then they're not going to cut it. Now, if
Yeah.
you're hiring for something other than that, like saying, this is for not just people that are listening to this podcast right now, this isn't just related to sales, you can also spin it onto other things. Now, I think personality kind of goes into every single job position, no matter what, but I think personality is a big key to unlocking a really good potential employee for your business. Also, Matt, I wanted to ask you too, when you actually get them into the business, say you've already sent out the offer letter and everything too, and they've accepted, what's your training process? Do you think that it's best to just put them right in there in the job and have them, I know we mentioned job shadowing, but put them through a training regimen, maybe a training process program? I know we did a Trainual. What's your review on Trainual? Do you think it's a good app to kind of use for or program to use for potential employees?
Love it. You did Trainual with us, right?
I did. Yep, I
Yeah,
remember
you
those
just said
days.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
remember. I
remember,
remember bringing in a big fat notebook, and like filling it like every single. I literally copied every single word on every single slide, just to make sure I didn't get an answer wrong.
good for you. Thank you. I love people to take notes. That's because it's so back in the day, so the first, so we've dealt with, or we've spoken about this morning, the hiring process, but once you onboard them, and then skipping forward a little bit, you need to have systems in place so an employee knows what to do. And that's how you scale a business. But that in between is they need to be trained on them, right? So think about, and I remember recently I said I'm going to convert over to Chick-fil-A because I just think they're doing it best right now in the fast food industry. This morning I got Chick-fil-A for the office. I drove up into a now dual drive-through line because Chick-fil-A I think has innovated that you don't even order into a speaker that's all garbly. You have an actual person that can speak to you and greet you with a smile in the morning. And that person that was trained on their job. They know exactly how far from the curb they can step out. They know how to do your order. They've been trained on the electronics they're using. By the time I drive around with what was a relatively large order, it's already there at the end. But everything, the reason why the employees are able to do that is they've been both A, trained, which is the next step we're talking about, and then B, they have that manual or how things are done in the systemic way that it is actually done. So speaking about training, back in the day when I created the trademark company, I, was very proud and I put everything down into PowerPoint slides. And the first two employees of the trademark company spent 2 weeks with me in a conference room, learning everything that they needed to do to make this place great and to make it, just an actual that they knew their stuff like the back of their hands, and just become an expert in what we actually do. As you're aware, over COVID, so believe it or not, it was actually that way up until COVID, and people would actually do that. And or I would sit down with every person that ever worked in this country and bring them in and indoctrinate them through my system of actually training. But that had to evolve into Trainual, which is an online platform, which is fantastic. Once we went home for COVID, we were like, well, how are we going to hire people? Well, we just took those Excel slides, moved them over to Trainual. It's trainual.com, trainual.com. Very easy to make your online training and online manuals for your company. And then we're able to train anyone around the globe that they just now go into our electronic. Now, you know that we do a combination of Trainual and then virtual meetings, or if they're in the office, actual meetings with us, things of that nature. But I think a good combination of both book learning, systems learning, but then testing people repeatedly. I mean, one of my favorite things to do still to this day was, and Jacob, you said you took notes. We have a new employee that's out of the Charlotte area, and I was instantly endeared to her because everything I would say in a meeting, I could see her writing it down. And I'm like, okay, I love this because she's paying attention. Juxtapose that to other people who I've had them in training, and they're like, oh, I get this. And they go through the training stuff in record time. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, so what's this? And they're like, huh? Oh, wait, I don't know that. I'm like, okay. Or they're like, yes, people. Oh, yeah, yeah, I got that. Yeah, yeah, I got that. And then you ask them a specific question and they have no idea what they're talking about. That's another way, by the way, to wash out of an organization is don't get just yes people that effectively are going to tell you, yeah, I'm learning all this. And if you spot that in training, and I can't, probably 1 out of 3 employees that we hire during training, we now will wash out just because you can already see, because it's something that it'll get through the interview process. And don't be afraid to wash somebody out in training, because it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run to keep them on, because they're never going to be a good employee for you. I can think of I'm just thinking, I can think of multiple people. I can remember one where one of our managers, you know the manager well, you're related to him, and literally just ask him, ask the guy in training, like, listen, I need you to, I think the kid was looking at his phone during training. And, while this manager was conducting a training course through, I think either 3 or 4 or 5 new people, I can't remember, I think it was 3,
He's on
maybe
his
4.
phone.
Yeah. And he was sitting there on his phone. All the manager said was, excuse me, could you like put your phone down and let's watch this? About 5 minutes later, if I recall the story correctly, the kid came into the manager's office after training him down. It's like, I don't need this. And, walked out of the office. And that was it. Last time we saw him. And you're just like, wow, think of all the time and effort we spent on somebody. All we did was to say, hey, can you just listen to me while I'm speaking and not be on, social media or whatever the heck the kid was doing? And it's just,
Is that too much to
and
ask? Like,
yeah, just how rude is that? And by the way, I say this being the person who is absolutely 100% the most addicted to their phone in this office.
I
Dude,
really like how you're touching upon this, Matt, because I remember when I was training, I remember when you would always after like the you know day's subject went by, you always had like a meeting with me and my other training partner. I can't remember his name. I think it was Jerome or somebody. Was their name. And you would always say, now time's the time to ask any questions. Anybody have any questions for me? And then the training partner didn't say anything. He's like, nope, I got it, I got it. And I always had a question that I had to ask that I always wrote it down whenever I'd go through the training program, and I'd be like, man, I really don't know the answer to this. I should ask Matt whenever we have that session. And I remember I was like, you know what? I think Matt likes it when I ask questions, because
love it.
he's obviously getting excited about his company and everything. And I love getting asked questions. Going back to that person that you said about that lives in Charlotte, that same person, I
Yeah.
I swear to God, like literally, I think there was like day 2 or day 3 on the job. She actually contacted me, that person, and she was like, Jacob, I just want to see what makes you tick and what makes you such a great salesperson. Like, seriously, like, what do you do on a daily basis that makes you so successful here? I really want to be like you. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, that is so different for me, for somebody to just ask that, especially so soon within the business.
Yeah.
Those are the types of people that will succeed in your business, because they're just wanting to do more. They're wanting to do more for themselves, also for the business as well. And they're just going to jump at every opportunity for any intel, information, anything to make them more successful. And you got to pay very close attention to those people.
Yeah. By the way, bonus tip for actually employees out there that could be potentially listening to this. If you want to be endeared to your actually employer and your boss, actually act like you care about the business. Now, it's not a very difficult thing to do, but instead of looking like you're indifferent, and take notes, do those things, such, I believe in doing, I don't believe you should ever do a B job or an 85% job. I believe 110% everything you do, because Why are you doing it otherwise? And so within that context, even if I'm working for somebody else, I'm all in all the time for them. And or at a minimum, I'm going to tell them that I am, because I want that opportunity for advancement. I want to be, viewed, wonderfully in their eyes. And you will. The people tell me that they love working here and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it warms my heart and such. And even the people that have, are no longer with us, who may have left on their own, but it was when they were always warm. I mean, we had a manager that left, yeah, last August. And you know, it helped us through some tough times and all that sort of stuff. You could not see that guy and not just have a better day. You know what I'm talking about? He was
Oh,
just,
I know. Hmm.
I used to always refer to him as a walking Disney character, because it was literally like you'd see him. He's just like, he's a great guy. Not, reviewing him here for all the world to hear or anything like that. There are some pros and there's some cons to him, but in general, every day he worked here, including but and not limited to up till the last day he worked here, even after he had given notice, he still talked glowingly about this place. And I think he probably still does, from what I can tell. But the point would simply be he's moved on to other, pastures. But he exemplified that, I think, in every part of his life. And I thought that was a really good thing to really model yourself after if you're an employee. It's just no matter where you are, it's the best and such, until you find something else that's also the best. And then you move on, if that ever be the case. But it doesn't really cost or take you anything to do that. And it makes the people that you work for really like you back a lot more. And you become a better emissary for the actual company to the actual customers if everything's the best, right? Anyways, I drifted off a
Exactly.
little bit. Bring us back onto
Matt,
something here.
Matt, if you were a Disney character, what Disney character would you want to be?
Wow, of all Disney, does that include Pixar as well?
I'll
Because
include it for
it
this.
includes
Yes.
Pixar as well. I have
I
one.
put you on the
Absolutely. It's
spot.
easy.
Yeah. Mhm.
Pixar as well. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
Mr. Incredible.
Mr. Incredible. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good one. Big, huge upper body, but tiny little legs, though. I mean,
That actually sort of describes me for people who've never seen me. Yeah.
yeah.
Chicken legs has been referred to me. Which one would you be?
I would love to be Goofy. Goofy is just. I mean, I would love to live
Really?
life as Goofy sometimes because he's just so nice to everyone. Doesn't have a care in the world for anyone. He just wants to live the life that he
Yeah.
lives, and loves his son. Very happy with how life is, and he's just a fun filled character. I love all of his movies. He's probably one of my favorite like Disney characters of all time, to be honest with you.
I'm just simply, and we've talked about, I don't know if we talked about this in former podcasts. I know around the office I've talked about it. Like, is Disney's classic characters still connecting and resonating with your generation? And
I think
that's just,
so.
that was a big vote. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely connected with my when I was a kid. I mean, I don't know exactly until I, have my kid of my own one of these days, but I would assume so. I think that they're always going to carry on. I mean, Disney movies, not throwing any shade there, but they don't make them like they used to back when. I think I lived probably in the golden era of Disney movies, and then I think also you were on the when no, well, what they have when you were a kid? Did they have Looney Tunes and everything? I don't even know.
What I'll tell you is I was raised on, we had, like, I still I'm still a Mickey Mouse guy, if that makes sense. Like, they didn't have a lot, like, we had a projector and my parents had old like Mickey Mouse, like Hawaiian Vacation and stuff. So I had the original. Then they had like the Mouseketeers Club and stuff every day where they would actually show Mickey Mouse stuff. So I'm Mickey Mouse. And then they would have like the Wonderful World of Disney. I think it's now back since they bought ABC for the last decade or so. But when I was a child, it was like they would always put a Disney movie on at like 7 p.m. And remember, this is in the day you didn't have Netflix, Apple TV. You could stream anything made ever whenever you want. So you were really on one of the three major networks. And so I did see all those movies, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, all those sort of things. I've just been fascinated that you're still connected, but I do agree with you. So when I was during the 80s and stuff, I think they lost their way a little bit because they did have movies like The Rescuers and, Escape to Witch Mountain, which you don't really hear about that much anymore because I think all movie studios sort of struggled in that time. But man, they came back strong when you were a young kid, with like, Little Mermaid, The Lion King, Lion King. How old were you when the Lion King came out? Were you alive?
I think it was, man, I can't remember when they came out. I think it did come out like right when I was like a little baby, I think, because I was born in
Yeah.
97. So it
Yeah.
was I think it came out right around there. But yeah, like I said, I lived in the golden age. Like it was
Yeah.
a point where I didn't even know how good I had it. Also, I know you're not really into it, but video games, man, I lived in the golden era of video games too, and I didn't know how good I had it until I had it. Now most games are just all the same. All Disney
Yep.
movies are all the same. We're copying them for their former selves or their former movies.
You hit on that
Um,
so brilliantly, and
yeah,
that's so you literally you're a Pixar kid in essence. So and
one hundred percent.
that's what they did with Pixar. The Pixar movies, I don't think they've ever made a bad Pixar movie. They're all fantastic. Um, and props out to again Mr. Incredible, and the real Mr.
Toy Story.
Incredible over Pixar, which is Brad Bird, which is I believe he's just amazing. But my knock on Disney of late, and I think it's really Hollywood in general, is give us something new. Oh, we're going to do live actions of the Little Mermaid and all these different things.
It's
It's
just remaking the same thing that's already been done. I mean, video games are doing the same thing now where they just can't come up with anything new. So they're just remaking their old games and selling them, which is
right.
awesome because we get to see the games that were once really arcadish or very ugly back in the day now because the graphics aren't the same as they are now. And now they're remaking them into masterpieces of graphics, and kind of giving us like a dip back to our nostalgia. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, completely agree. And it's a shame. Yeah. Just give us something new, give us something fresh. Like Tom Cruise came out after, all those years and actually came out with Maverick, Top Gun 2. They didn't recast the original Top Gun and redo the whole movie. He came out with an actual sequel,
What
which
a
was,
phenomenal movie.
I know, it was just stunningly good. It's like one of those movies. It's like it's on the level to me of like Endgame with the Avengers. It's like you didn't miss anything. You just hit everything. Props out. Disney counters, not counters, but I'm talking about. Hey, a live action of the Little Mermaid. Hey, let's do a live action of the Lion King. Hey, let's do okay. We got the CGI.
Aladdin.
Aladdin, exactly. And of all of of those, I actually thought Will Smith, Mr. Slapper,
He did a
should we
very
just call
good
him
job in that
Slappy? Do we just
movie.
call him
Yeah.
Slappy? He did a fantastic job. I love Will Smith from my childhood and or my teenage years. Fantastically talented guy. I'm sorry that his marriage got to a point where, whatever, because I still think he's just what a great story and what a great kid in general. Although I think he's like my age. So I can't say what a great kid. But anyways, Aladdin I thought was the best of all those. But again, give us something new and fresh. Aside from the fact that, whatever, give us something new and fresh, Disney. Stop just remaking your stuff. All right, coming back to teams. We've talked about today um, how do you get people to actually apply, basically interviewing them, having them on board, training them. We already know you needed systems. We touch on anything else today, or how are we doing?
I think we should leave it up on probably the most important topic, which is we'll leave off on this lead by example. So going back through again, Matt pretty much summarized all of the talking points here, right? So you've brought them into the business by either social media or Indeed or however you got them in there. You've done the interviews, you've done the training, they're through the training, they came out the other side, they're ready to work, they're ready to get on the phones for you, they're ready to do their job. But now what's left, which is leading by example. This could be your managers that you have set up to manage them. It could be the job shadowers, the people that obviously that are training them side by side. Also, yourself as an owner needs to lead by example, be a good role model. I think Matt, you're the greatest role model I think I've ever had.
Oh, thank you.
Also giving me great leadership here of what I want to be. And you need to start that from the get go so that they can feel good about coming into their job. You don't want, I have a strong belief on every job that you come into, you should somewhat have some happiness there. Because if you don't have happiness and you hate your life when you go to work, that's just not the way you want to live your life. I mean, life is too short as it is. Why are you going into a place that you hate? Not everyone has that opportunity. I know. So this is for people that have the choice, but I think that everyone that goes into a place should be somewhat happy with their lives, because sometimes you're at work more than you're at home enjoying time with your families. You're sometimes more at work than you are when you're sleeping, so I think that since the most time that you spend is at a place where you're making money, why not make it happy? And when you're happy is when you're surrounded by people that are leading you towards a great place, which is success. And I think everyone that I definitely, when I first started, all of my managers still to this day, the manager that we currently have is doing a phenomenal job. Matt, you're doing a phenomenal job just leading by example with everything that you do. But Matt, from the role model himself and the leader himself, tell us about what you do to kind of lead by example.
Ooh, man, I'm still gushing here. Give me a second. I don't know. Oh, this is fantastic. So thank you. I've been fortunate in my life to have been able to have some really good education from Columbia University to George Mason University School of Law, George Washington School of Law, etc. But irrespective of wherever I am on the brain scale, I will never tell you that I'm smarter than you. But I will tell you I will outwork you every day, 7 days a week, 365. Now, maybe that's not the best thing for an entrepreneur. I have this philosophy that, Sir Richard Branson, excuse me, again, work looks different when you become the boss. However, like I have this philosophy that, you only see him like, windsurfing with a supermodel on his back or something to that effect. But that's all just his PR. He's a shrewd businessman who I think even into his 70s probably still works harder than the average person here in the United States or in Britain for that matter. Um, Leading by example, I think starts every morning with, number one, getting up. For me, at least what I've seen that's worked is getting up before the crack of dawn and getting your higher level stuff done before anyone else even gets into the office. So I'm up around 5:30 in the morning and, having your coffee while you're reviewing the previous day's financials. You're planning out what I need to get done today and making sure that all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted with your business. I'm not saying that everyone that owns a business should be doing that, but by the time that your employees walk in the door, it's almost like, well, let's go back to Disney. It's like showtime. Everything should be ready to go. There should be internet access to the building. All computers should be functioning. There should be phone access. You should have done your job sufficient that in a sales organization, there are a few leads for them to contact, or you know what I'm saying? So everything needs to be done. A lot of people don't see behind the scenes, but you have to lead by example. Make sure that number one, everything is done. Number two, don't be afraid of giving those little subtle hints of how hard you work. So every morning by about 6 a.m., I've probably emailed one or two different people in the company just to say, hey, this is the standard which is expected. Now I don't expect anyone, because it's my business, to be up, at 6 a.m. with me. Although I do know of at least two or three people in the company that will be texting me routinely by about 7 a.m. if there's a challenge with something or whatever the case may be. And then we have others, again, that, will be texting me at 5:30, 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Maybe they're not early risers, but they don't walk out the door at 5 because they want to hit their sales numbers and such. But like you said, I think they get that from knowing that their boss is a hardworking person. And if you have everyone aligned, remember, get the right people on the bus, get them into the right seat. But the alignment with, especially when you have a small business and, sometimes it can rise or fall on how hard people work. I think you just have to instill that into the business through example. You can't just be that leader. And I'm going to throw it back onto you for a minute. And I'm going to say, you've left this company and then you've come back once. And if you can share, I don't know if you remember, but when we were sitting that night and we started talking, you shared your first day's experience with the owner of that company. Are you okay to share, just without mentioning anything about the company or that person's name, like how that person led their company? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wow, man, I really like how you kind of open this subject. So yeah, I this is a great example of how not to start an employee out and how to lead by example. So yeah, I'd love to touch upon this. I'm not going to say any names or the company or whichever. I'll just say the field, so it all makes sense. So I did leave the business at one point to pursue other opportunities, and I did start out as a salesperson or sales estimator for a fence company. And it was also a little bit closer to my home, so it also made sense there. They did at the start, kind of give me some luxuries that kind of caught my eye at first. And I also kind of screened them on my side as best I could. And I tried to determine if they were a good fit for me, just like they were trying to determine if I was a good fit for them. So they did all the interview process was spot on from them. So they definitely did their job in that case. But when I actually got into the job, that's when all things started to fail. I actually kind of felt bad for myself because I even remembered the when I was interviewing, the person said that one of the people you should definitely pay attention to the most and give the most attention to is your scheduler, because your scheduler is basically responsible for getting all your appointments, which in turn gives you all of your commission, right? So they're the person that calls all of the customers every single morning and does all of the customer service stuff for you, so you don't even have to handle any of that. And so
Right.
I was like, okay, perfect. What's their name? I went out that day before my next day, which is work. I got them because I knew that their favorite thing in this world was Diet Pepsi. So I literally went out and got Diet Pepsi. So I would bring it in the next day, my first time seeing that person, and gave it to her. And because I was again so excited for that position. Of course, she was excited, but just because again shows how excited I was for the position. And then day one, just as soon as they get in, they come in late, first of all, to my meeting or their meeting that they set for me. They also, mind
Nope.
you, they're late for all of the interviews. I was sitting there like on Zoom just twiddling my fingers. So they were late. So that's another thing you don't want to be as a manager or as an owner, being late for your
Yep.
own meetings that you set. Came in there, flip-flops, just t-shirt, shorts with their dogs too, like their two dogs
Yeah.
on leashes. And they gave me this bag of groceries to go put in the refrigerator. Um, and and then they started like showing me around the shop and everything, which was cool and everything. But already also berating some of their own employees there about what kind of job needs to be done better, et cetera, et cetera. So already starting off not on a good foot there, and then just jumps right into the training, just sits down and just starts hitting me with it. And obviously, that I think starting out, you should definitely get your feet wet early and often, just getting going on into the job. Because if you train too long, then you're not going to be able to just rip the band-aid off. But you also want some training done so you know what to do. My first ever job shadow, I had to meet them at a customer's house, and the person showed up. The lead trainer, the person that's supposed to be the best at the job, shows up late. I beat them to the appointment and was on time. Was smelled like alcohol, smelled like weed, and they were not even knowing of why I was there, and said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you lead this estimate." I was like, man, I appreciate the trust, but I don't even know what I'm doing. This is my first day. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, okay, really? All right, well, I'll just follow me around. I'll show you what to do. And
Wow.
and then literally the next day, they were already sending me out on my first estimate. All they did was throw me a walking stick and a computer, and I was on my way. And I literally had no clue of what to do. And I was out there, and I'm like, not trying to lie to the customers, but I was trying to like show them I knew somewhat what I was talking about. And I don't even think I did the estimate correctly. And then when I took the estimate back to the office or the shop, they were mad at me because I didn't do the estimate right. And it maybe took me back to like school. Everyone's been in school where the teacher, makes fun of you because you don't know what you're doing. That took me right back to school where I was just like, man, like, I don't, this is like my first day, like, go easy on me. Like, I'm trying to learn the subject. They expected me to like know all of the fences and all of the fencing that they have in different types and different materials and stuff that it used, so I can relate to the customer correctly. And I knew none of it. And I was just like, guys, give me a break here. Like, I need some time to like adjust to the position. This is my first day. And I tried telling them that, and they did not care one iota. And the trainer, the job shadower guy, he also kind of ganged up on me too. And they're all trying to help me understand. And I felt like I was getting ganged up on. Like I was just getting like cornered. And so
Bad
I'll
experience
literally,
all around. Mhm.
exactly. And so I'll just leave it off on I gave them my tip of the hat, just saying, nope, no, thank you. I'm good. And I literally just I gave them my computer back and all of my materials and I just quit the next day. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
how not to do it.
By the way, on an aside, we should mention Jacob did not fail in one of our three rules because he actually did have another job to go to, but I'm not going to go into that. But like you said, so lead by example, right? Show up, be on time for your own meetings, dear Lord, be on time for your own meetings. Have sufficient training. In essence, you have to set the standard, but you have to live to the standard yourself. And I've always loved that. When we were candidly sitting at a bar and you told me this story and such. And when I heard that about your first day, I was just like, oh my gosh, like what that owner did, and like that's, maybe their company's still out there, maybe they're doing great. I don't know. But I just always was like, this is just how you don't run a company. And if your company's making it, it's because you have such a good product or product that people need, shall I say, in that case, that you're going to make it despite it. But yeah, I mean, you see they lost you after a single day. All right, cool. So lead by example, right? To close it out.
Exactly. And I'll close this out right after this point, which is, I'm not trying to like, gloat or anything, but I'm a pretty damn good salesperson. Wouldn't you agree?
Agreed.
And they missed out on an opportunity that I could have given them. Like if you just now, I'm not a lot of there's certain people out there, Matt. I think maybe. I mean, I've never seen you train anything, but I would assume you're a very fast learner. I am not, unfortunately, never have been able to be a fast learner in school or anything. So I've been able to counteract that with, just a lot of studying and a lot of notes and a lot of memorization, tricks.
Yeah.
I've never been able to look at something once and remember it and be able to rehearse it and be very good with it. I'd be terrible as an actor. um, but if they would have just given me time, which is, again, this is something you guys should use, who's over listening, to use with your employees. Give your employees time. Don't be that teacher that just like berates you if you don't understand something right away. Be there to because when you're an employee, you've given, like, especially starting out, you've given up everything for the most part, your past job to come work at a place. You've believed in this company because you believe it in yourself. So you're the most weakest that you're ever going to be as an employee is right from the get-go. Okay. So it's just like, be very careful with that, how that employee is at the beginning, because that is very crucial to their longevity at a company, is how they start out. Like, Matt, you bought me pizzas the first day. You had Ian check on me all the time. You checked on me yourself all the time to make sure I was doing okay. Anytime I had a question, you guys were right there to answer it. And that, in my opinion, is leading by example. So I'm going to leave it
Trust.
off on that note. Thank you, for anyone that's listening. Thank you, Matt, for joining me today. This finalizes our episode 2 of Building a Team. Look forward to next week's podcast. Don't know the subject yet, but we'll figure it out. Matt, thank you again for joining me. And anything else to say to the folks?
Nope. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All righty. Well, that concludes this episode of Small Business Chat. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.